Another sales wisdom today, guys, with Cyan Mookherjee. He is founder at 221B Baker Street. Interesting guy. I've been speaking with him, got to learn a bit more about him and his eclectic background, I would say. Cyan, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your company?
Sure. I would rather speak more about my company because that's more interesting. We as an organization, I started off this organization 7.5 years back after seeing experiences of the sales folks or the sales teams across literally enterprises as well as smaller organizations where they have to make the soul-sucking cold calls sometimes, most of the times, or they didn't have the insights actually that why they're making the cold calls and things like that. So from there, we created a device or a plan, actually, I would say, called EQ-based messaging. For example, what we do is there's a decision maker or anybody like that. We go through their entire social media posts. I'm talking about the public social media posts, actually, which are officially posted on LinkedIn or on their company's blog spots and things like that. We go through them and then we hyper customize those messages to them over LinkedIn and emails. That's what we started off in 2015, which really gave us a tremendous success in the beginning. We assisted our clients to close accounts or calls with a Google or a Microsoft and things like that. Now, since we have moved to 2023, now we have put across many more offerings. For example, we go for high intent marketing. For example, we literally triangulate why somebody wants to buy your product. We understand that why somebody, from the B2B perspective, of course, we are completely a B2B organization. We really try to find it out why exactly they are interested to buy your product. And in those cases, we actually triangulate them and then send them hyper customized messages, which we spoke about in the beginning. So that's in brief what we do. Actually, we do also have an engineering division as well, a research and development team as well, who's working on in some of the tools which we are generating, which helps you to find exact revenues, exact information, rather than the other tools which are present in the market, which might be not giving you the latest information.
I'd like to talk about you though, like to start this off to understand the weird and interesting background that you have. So how does your family being great at or just playing in the stock market influence you as a person, and did that have an influence on you becoming a founder later on in life?
Certainly. The reason is that it's from very childhood, I could see my father. I remember it. It was 1992, and when I think Bill Clinton won his first elections on that year. And I remember that my father used to watch it, and he used to make me sit. I was just a child on that point of time, and he used to make me understand that how the world politics work, how exactly oil prices goes up, how oil prices goes down, how it affects the stock markets and things like that, how the future markets work into the how the future markets work actually. So it was I would say an inception of those ideas right from my childhood. So I'm extremely inspired by my father who really played a lot humongous amount of part of it. Plus, he did insert a lot of socialist ideas, in fact, right from my beginning, which is very much relevant in this world nowadays. And it helps you to grow and run the organization. So it's two things. First, you have the economics, you understand the politics, you understand, and me being a computer science engineer, so having a engineering background and a logical overview, marrying all these ideas plus running the organization as a socialist as well. So giving those assurances to the employees and things like that, that is something which makes a wholesome experience for me. And I'm definitely indebted to my parents for that.
Second, we talked about your near fatal accident. What influence did that had on your mindset?
Uh, the accident made me realize that life is extremely unpredictable. I remember it very well that I stayed back an hour actually because I wanted to finish a proposal which I was sending across to a client. So and that's one of the reasons for which I had that accident, because it was quite late in the morning, quite early in the morning actually, quite cold and things like that, and early in January. So I realized from there, I realized that I cannot take anything for granted. That's something which I've realized very well.
Yeah, we talked about cars in India and still being chaotic. It's not the first accident that I hear. I think I had an employee or two back in the days in India that had an accident on their scooter and were hospitalized for like a 2, 3 months, something quite serious. So I guess that changes your perspective on life, and yeah, like it shakes you kind of, and maybe it like shows you that yeah, life isn't to be taken that much for granted. I certainly know in myself that I wake up and it's like right now I'm taking care of like 8 puppies and dogs, and it's like when will this be done, you know? I have 10 days left, but how about me grateful for being alive, you know? That would be a start. I think that people need to realize, and I myself first, I think we need to show more gratefulness, maybe meditate once you shut your eyes and go to sleep, and then realize that it was a good day because you survived, and the people that you love too, right?
I'm glad to hear that you have 8 puppies at your place. And I do have 5 dogs and 3 cats at my place as well. And all of them, apart from one, are adopted actually. So yes, that gives again, after the accident, I realized more, and now every day I realize it more how precious they are to me actually.
Yeah.
So yes, yeah.
Same here, all adopted, and the puppies are from the mothers that we adopted, and we didn't know she was pregnant 2, 3 months ago.
Mhm.
Let's talk about business now. 221 B Baker Street. First, like, were you in charge of the branding of your company?
Um, I would say quite a bit of it, I would say, of course. The idea was the naming. So let's start off with the naming actually. The reason for which we named as 221B Baker Street, because everybody always say that people associate Sherlock Holmes with that name more, but it's a misnomer, I would say, in that case, because Dr. Watson also used to stay before his marriage over there, in fact. So, and that's exactly what we do, in fact. It's our services are being divided into 2 parts. What one we call as the Deer Stalker, another part we call as Watson. So in the Deer Stalker part, where we use the intelligence, where we use the market research, where we triangulate the, you know what, the intent of an organization to buy a certain product of our client, of course. And the Watson part is someone when we write hyper customized EQ-based messages to them itself. So that's a reason for which we specifically mentioned those 2 names. That's why we named it as something like this, because it really amalgamates both of them actually. Now about the drawings and things like that. Yeah, that's something I have my one of my very respected college seniors, and so we spoke about it. We thought about it, making a bit more something like I would say Frank Miller's Sin City kind of a, we wanted to have a look and feel of a Frank Miller Sin City like that. The yellow color, by the way, it's not exactly the yellow color. It's something I would say is the color of my favorite club, one of my clubs which I admire actually. I would say Borussia Dortmund. So we use that color in the color palette actually on the website. Also, the club which I love is Barcelona. So we use that. We mix both of them, and then we have done it. So it's a, I would say, summation of a lot of ideas and inspirations which we have done.
I need to re-listen to Sin City again. It's been way too long, so thank you for reminding me of the existence of that movie. I love it, you know, the investigation. For quite a while, I've called it the Platonic method, you know. So just asking questions constantly, getting to the bottom of things. I think that's is
Yep.
really much our job as salespeople and as GTM/SDR agencies, to really find out what is the offering, what is the pain point, and test out hypothesis. You know, because most of the time the clients, they don't know like the grand majority of the time. You still might get some information from them. You can combine that with your past knowledge, form some hypothesis, and test out these hypotheses through cold email. Do you also subscribe to this method?
Oh, yes, certainly. I will be very honest. I have rarely seen a client who knows exactly what they want. So I always say that
Which is
men,
preoccupying also, no? It's a bit preoccupying. I mean, for us, like salespeople, it's like normal. Or should we say marketing people as well? But the best founders out there, they absolutely know the pain of their clients, and they absolutely know that the remedy that they're bringing to that. For example, startups that come out of Y Combinator, it's really the
Mhm.
basic, they know the pain, they know the remedy, and that's where they go. But yeah, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. But unfortunately, what I've seen, even since we have a couple of Fortune clients and we have worked with them closely, it's a very unfortunate thing that maybe the vision which is up there, it gets maybe diluted to the directors and VPs sometimes even. But the way we work, I'll give you a fun example. Women, when they stand in front of mirrors, they're very conscious, extremely conscious how they look and things like that. But men, on the contrary, are completely opposite the way they don't really realize that how they're actually looking, in fact. We exactly act as like the mirrors, and maybe our clients are like men sometimes. We really try to make them understand that, hey, this is what exactly are your strengths. This is exactly where you should play around. And this is exactly what your weaknesses are. And we should avoid talking about those things actually. So that's precisely we have been doing for the last 7.5 years, that we would rather focus on the strengths. We understand what's the strength of that organization. We create our own marketing pitch rather than using the marketing pitch flow, which they might have it, and then run it across towards the probable client which they might be interested to work with. Yeah,
What does your tech stack look like? Yeah, let's start with this question. Then I have a follow-up question about AI.
sure. So yeah, if you are talking about the tech stack, uh, if see in the case of the market research, I would say that we completely focus on. See, we have some. That's a very good question actually. So we do have some inbuilt tools which we use, which scrapes through the Twitter entirely and tells us that which. So for example, if there's a compensation benchmarking client we have, so what happens in that case is if their competitors and their peers, if they're talking about certain sections. So for example, we found out that in United Kingdom, a part of the railway workers or the railway transportation companies, they were on a strike or they were not really happy with the compensation they were receiving and things like that. And how we got that information, based on the Twitter scraping tool which we have, which we help us to find out what their competitors and peers are talking about actually. Similarly, we work very closely using the hashtag, like for example, if an organization is using digital transformation or doing something on the digital transformation. So what we do is that we simply put a hashtag digital transformation on LinkedIn, and we start to follow those channels and see that which person is posting about something like that. For example, maybe Beam Santori, a few days back, they posted about how they're really doing a digital transformation entirely about their packaging and things like that, and then we target those organizations in that cases. So those are our in-house tech stacks which we work upon. Apart from that, the usual sales navigator which is there. We use a lot of Google Analytics. We put those particular keywords or the intent keywords, I would say, on the Google Analytics actually, and we see that which news throws us back to it. So if certain organization says that, hey, if they're working on something like that and it comes as a news to us, let's take an example. Maybe someone is some which an organization maybe have spoken about supply chain issues in one of their quarter results. Then in that cases, it comes back to us as a form of an email notification that this organization is facing this kind of supply chain issues. So I would say this are a wide array of things which we are using currently. Yeah.
Well, I use Apollo for database and yeah, building some lists. I try to use other tools as well when it's not LinkedIn related. For example, if it's restaurants. I use D7, for example. So it scrapes Facebook, it scrapes Google Map mostly.
Yep.
Have you tried or started using AI so far at scale? And what results have you got from it?
Okay, so I'll give you a detailed answer of it. This EQ-based messaging, which we do actually, like for example, we go through somebody's profile and try to understand what they're writing, what they're thinking, and things like that. And then we use that as an icebreaker. We have been doing this for a while actually now, and before the GPT-3 or ChatGPT came or anything like that, there was the GPT-1, GPT-2 version which was there. Which we have been working from 2018, 2019 itself. We were trying to train it along with another engineering college, a major called IIT Patna. We collaborated with them and we were trying to find out how to automate, how they're going to really structure or form a sentence, which we were manually doing it, reading it actually, what they were posting about on their social media. We were working on the previous versions of the OpenAIs of GPT-1, GPT-2 over there itself, and it was helping us to create those one-liners. But since now the GPT-3 has come up over here and other versions have come up over here right now, those things have become easier. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to scrape the news about a particular person or an organization actually, getting the summary of it, feeding it into the ChatGPT-3 in this cases, which was much more difficult job when we were doing it when it was GPT-1 and GPT-2 actually. You had to train a lot in those cases. So, yep, that's something which we are doing currently, in fact.
And how are you doing it at scale? Because me, for example, the Apollo AI feature is not so good. It's also manual. We are now exporting the list from Apollo. We are using some Google Sheets extension to actually like have a bunch of personalized line. And then once we do, we re-import it back in Apollo with a custom tag. So can you do it at scale yet?
I would say no, because see, this is something which this is completely, I would say, a homegrown thing. It's a completely we are not using anything from an Apollo or anything like that. What we are doing is that, as I mentioned in the case of the GPT-3 actually, previously in GPT-1 and GPT-2, what we were doing is that we were training the model actually. We were training them, giving them 27 to 28 parameters. Like, for example, every decision maker on LinkedIn, they post generally on 27 to 28 topics. I mean to say actually 27 to that their post is generally confined within those 27 to 28 topics itself. Somebody can really talk about maybe a collaboration between one organization or another organization. Somebody will say that one organization has acquired another organization, or maybe that organization has won an award, or that person has completed a certification or something like that. So we created a list of those 27 to 28 type of posts which they do actually. And then we were training the GPT-2 and GPT-1 and GPT-2 actually on that. So yeah, that's something which we did. But now it's easier actually to do it. You can simply send it across to a GPT-3 or things like that. What we are trying to fine tune it is that how to get the right news, because scraping the entire news about a certain person or an organization is not an easy thing to do. So yeah, that's where the obstacles are primarily are, in fact.
How do you combine sequences? Nowadays, is it mostly email, LinkedIn? Do you have some calls as well?
We are a complete no call organization. We generally try to avoid the calls actually. So about the sequences, that's a very good question. So generally, I'll talk about the email sequences first, then I will try to combine with the LinkedIn sequences actually. So we generally send the LinkedIn invites and the emails generally on the same day itself. So if that person accepts the LinkedIn invite, great. If the person doesn't accept the LinkedIn invite, at least the person will be getting the emails at least in their inbox. About the email sequences which we use, the first email which goes out to them primarily is going to be a brief summary about what my client is doing actually. The first sequence or the first follow-up generally goes out about a case study, a brief case study, which is going to talk about how our client solved a particular problem to the prospective client of a similar vertical. So If let's take an example, a subsidiary of SAP is our client, or Adobe is our client. In that cases, we try to say in that cases that, hey, how Adobe has solved maybe a particular problem for, I would say, in the retail region itself. So we will be segregating it, or customers, like prospect segmenting, actually, I would say. Would segment the prospects based on what verticals they are, and then we write the pitch flows exactly like that as well, segmenting based on the case studies which we receive, or maybe go through the websites and things like that. That's the first follow-up happens. The second follow-up happens also on a different case study, actually. The final follow-up is somewhat of a summation once again of what the first three messages was all about. So yeah, that's the sequences which we follow.
Pretty cool. Cyan, where can people find out more about you and the team?
Apologies, didn't get you.
Yeah, where can people find out more about you, your website, LinkedIn?
Sure, of course, we do have our LinkedIn page, and we do speak. Our LinkedIn page is pretty active. Not talking about what we work, but more talking about what our associates are doing every day in their everyday life itself. Because I strongly believe that if we can keep our associates happy, the clients will be automatically happy itself. Of course, there should be certain protocols which we have to follow about the customer delivery, but I feel that that's more important to keep the associates happy. That will make the customers happy.
Right. And website is 22 and the number 1 bbs.com, right?
That's great. Yeah.
All right, perfect.